But I think there are probably some other ways that social media managers and marketers are going to be helped by this technology. What are
Yeah.
you seeing coming down the line?
Well, not much, to be honest with you. I mean, there's I'm starting to see. I mean, social media, I have to be honest, is not something I spend a huge amount of time, other than my own personal Twitter feed. It's not a field I do any work in, and so I don't share a lot of the kind of the challenges and frustrations that social media managers must be dealing with on a daily basis.
Mm.
However, having spoken to some people that work in that field and understanding what they're dealing with each day, there are so many different things I think could be done. I mean, the only things I've seen really kind of made available is like content writing. So you've got
Yeah.
tools, I don't know, things like Canva and stuff like that, where you want to make a social post and it will have it'll have something that will generate the heading for you, the tweet or whatever it is, the content that's going on that. But I don't know. I think there's so much more that you could do with these tools that would be really interesting, and I haven't seen it available. For example, a tool, I think I've maybe mentioned this before on previous episode. A tool that I always really like playing with is SparkToro,
Yeah.
which is an audience research tool. So you can go and put in anything that defines your audience. You can say they follow a certain social account, they visit a particular website, they have a certain job title, and it will then find thousands of people that are within that audience and give you a whole load of really useful data about those people, including things like the hashtags that they're using most frequently when they're posting online, the phrases that they're using most frequently, all kinds of stuff. We could then take that data, we could then go and shove that into GPT, and knowing that these are all topics of interest to that particular audience, we can then use that to create new tweets and new posts based on things that they are currently talking about.
Like competitively, like you could look at what your competitors' audience responds to.
Yeah, I mean, just taking all these different data feeds. I mean, another thing as well, I know that people, social media managers, have to work with are things like what do they call them? Social holiday calendars,
Yes.
where you've got. In fact, I think the Digital Marketing Institute has a really great spreadsheet that you can download that lists all these things like National Donut Day and all these kind of different events that are coming up all the time. So, having that in, say, for example, a Google Sheet, that data in a Google Sheet, where you also define what your company does, who your audience is, and then using GPT to then come up with really interesting content topics and tweets and things that could be posted out that use the data from the holiday calendar,
Absolutely.
but are targeted and absolutely suitable for the audience that you're trying to reach and applicable to your business. And if that doesn't exist, it really should do, because it's not something that would be difficult to produce. And maybe people listening to this, if this is, I've got a little bit of time on my hands now that I've got Fabric Genie launched and out the way. I have got a little bit of time free. So if that's something that would be helpful to people, please let us know, because it's something that I would be very happy to make available in a Google Sheet free for people to download.
That sounds amazing. I mean, that I have worked on social media quite a bit, and that is exactly the kind of thing that would be a great baseline, a great starter for a content plan. It'd be something that you'd want to obviously tweak yourself, but out of the box, I can imagine that GPT would probably get that 80 to 90% right, and I think that'd be invaluable.
I mean, especially if we can do it with a version, with a GPT model that is then linked to live web data as well. So it's not just kind of based on stuff from 2021. There could be some really interesting things we could do with that. So maybe if there is a demand for that out there, then people let us know. And then I'll show it to you, Will, and you can give me some feedback.
Absolutely.
Before we put it out.
I'd love that. Do you know, on the similar topic, though, I think, and again, I have not seen this, I've seen maybe this creeping into analytics products, but social listening seems absolutely ripe for GPT to come and ingest that information, i.e. what people are saying en masse in social media, right?
What about a brand?
About a brand or any topic or keyword, but specifically about your brand, about your products or services, about your industry and about your competitors. Ingest that, understand it, make sense of it, because GPT is a sense-making engine in a lot of ways, isn't it? It can make sense of nebulous, messy, disorganized, just big piles of verbal information. And I think to be able to ingest that, make sense of it and break it down, do some basic sentiment analysis or that kind of thing, keyword analysis, and actually in some ways that could feed into content planning in certain situations as well. So it does seem that again, that's anything semantic basically. GPT is your friend, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I had been working in the world of social media rather than the world of search, I have no doubt that I would have already released tons and tons of free sheets and scripts and made them all available to do all kinds of different things that frustrated me and might be helpful to other people. Because I don't work in social media, these are things I'm not hugely familiar with. So if people can let me know what problems they're experiencing. You know, this is not something I'm trying to do on any kind of commercial basis. So just let me know about some things that might be helpful and see what we can put together.
Absolutely.
I mean, something else I understand that people who work in social and comms is also making sure that everything that goes out conforms to a certain brand voice, brand style. That kind of thing as well is an area where I think language models could really help as well, is making sure that everything that goes out, is...
Yeah, you have a brand guardian, basically, that you've built on GPT. I can see that working really well, That's interesting, actually, because a lot of bigger brands have their brand really thoroughly encoded in the form of design systems or brand guidelines that these days are mostly public. You know, if you want to find out what Starbucks' tone of voice is, there's pages of it online on their website, on their corporate website. So yes, there's probably something around that as well, actually. Tone of voice is a really interesting one. Or if you had a coffee shop and you said, I want to sound a bit like Starbucks, but with a little bit of this or that, you could get it to ingest. Now that we've got browsing capability with GPT, you could get it to go and read Starbucks' online tone of voice guidelines and then adapt it to your brand, and then filter your planned social media updates or something and rewrite them or check them. I mean, again, it's the semantics, isn't it? You know,
there's so many opportunities out there for people to build these things, and it's quite surprising that a lot of the software companies that already have those users are not capitalizing on this more.
It's funny because every SaaS business's next feature is AI, isn't it? Everybody's talking about like their new feature being some AI powered thing, but I think the quicker wins perhaps are more around content creation. I think that's perhaps where people get more obvious value, but clearly in the analysis there is more. And we will see that. I saw this morning that there's a podcast analytics firm and host called Sprinkler. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they are actually doing sort of what I'm talking about, where they're using GPT to look at mentions of your podcast in social, ingest that and sum it up and perform some basic sentiment analysis, I think. So I think we'll just see more of it coming in the coming weeks and months, really.